one of the days we brought actors in to act out scenes that the kids had written. And for that day, it was as if they weren't in prison anymore. All the walls and the bars all kind of melted away, and they got to see their art coming to life for the first time. Because as people that hadn't written a screenplay before, you don't know what it's like to see actors living and breathing the drama that you've created with these characters. Your characters are coming to life, scenes are being elevated, and suddenly these kids turn from being first-time writers to becoming first-time directors. And they would go up to the actors and say, could you do it a little more this way, or let's try to change the scene like this. It was pretty incredible.
So how did you get involved? That's such a specialized group of people to help.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Ben Lear, who's directing the documentary, had an idea for a fiction movie about Alzheimer's in prison. And the moment he said Alzheimer's in prison, I think most people go, wait a minute, how does Alzheimer's get handled in prison? So we started working on the story, and we started breaking the story, and it was time to do some research. And I didn't have any connections into adult facilities, but some friends of mine work with juveniles. So I reached out to them, and they invited us down to this juvenile facility, and we met with a bunch of kids. And immediately it seemed like there was a need for the kids to have some kind of sense of accomplishment, other than going into the gang cycle and going back into that cycle over and over again.
So were all their crimes, I guess, violent with guns?
The kids we met with that first time were just in juvenile hall, which they could have done anything from, robbery to violent crimes to, I don't know what all of them, to just being part of a gang, to having a gun. The kids that I ended up working with are all in a maximum security facility specifically for juveniles that are being tried as adults. And they are all accused of doing violent crimes.
Do you believe they're innocent?
One of them has gone to trial already. I went to his trial. He was convicted of 37 out of 40 counts. I believe that he was part of the events that took place. I also believe that he did not go out intentionally to kill these people, and attempted murder is what he is accused of. And it's a different crime if that's not your intention. It's attempted manslaughter if you're not intending to kill the people. So, and it's a much reduced sentence. So do I believe they did it? Yeah, I believe these kids made some mistakes. They made some bad choices. I also think that they're kids, and there's all sorts of brain science that proves that when you're a child, you don't have the capacity to make lifelong decisions. I think we all probably can think about some decisions we made at 15, 16 that weren't of sound mind, and I think that they should be treated differently than adults.
Were drugs involved each time?
Not heavy drugs. I mean, you hear about them being stoned or whatever, but no, it's more just gang life. It's more cultural involvement.
So where are these kids from? Most of them?
From Los Angeles, in and around Los Angeles.
You just said something that was fascinating to me about the brain. I'm fascinated by the brain. So what have you read these types of studies?
I've read a little bit. I'm not an expert on juvenile brain science, but the science is in. It's sort of like climate change. Scientists agree that climate change exists. Scientists agree that the frontal lobe of the brain has not fully developed until you're 25. And that is the 25. So, and that is the part of the brain that evolves over time with regard to decision making. So I'm not an expert in this, but I do know that that's what the research shows, and that any scientist who is an expert would tell you that convicting somebody for life of a crime that they committed when they were under 18 is just not fair.